Hello, everyone. So, yeah, the talk is called Spoonful of Sugar. You're going to see why. For disclosure, there is no sugar in it. You don't have to worry. I'm going to start with a question. How many of you do have a casual game on your phone? One. How many of you played it in the last week? Right. So one of the reasons I'm doing this talk is because I am a free-to-play designer. And as maybe many of you, I am tempted to use my knowledge in, like, when thinking about gamification, when thinking about applied gaming. And it's not all wrong, but it's also not all right. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Originally, when I gave this talk previously, it was called Defense Against Dark Arts. I'm not here to necessarily defend the dark side, but I'm also here to give you some examples of how to do it better and how to apply these mechanics. So very quickly about me, if I can figure out how this thing works. Down. Okay, that's me. So yeah, I'm a free-to-play game designer. I worked for a couple of bigger companies in the last 10-something years. I'm a consultant. Oh yeah, I fell in love with serious games through Utrecht. Maybe some of you have been there last year. I wasn't there for the conference, but I basically got into gamification through the Netherlands. And I am a consultant for the company called Naavik. You see our little logo there on the bottom. And we've been lately focusing more on gamification. I'm trying to spearhead that part of, like, our focus, because I do enjoy it way more than these days. I do enjoy free-to-play gaming. And I also share some of the clients that we worked for. And finally, I wrote a deep dive on habit building apps. There's a little bit, maybe a little bit chiming into the question, the last question here. And you can find it through the link if the slides are shared, or if you use this navigation, then you will get there as well. It's very long. I recommend not reading it. Maybe, put it to ChatGPT. And some of the learnings will show here as well. Anyway, so let's get started. So, as I said, I'm not here to defend free-to-play gaming. I do have my reserves. Like, we all know that there's a lot of bad about it, a lot of about how they make you stay in the experience. At the same time, true story. At the same time, there is a bunch of things that I consider good. So we're going to be talking a lot about mechanics. This talk is basically to give you some idea how to, you're playing your favorite game, you see something you like, is it fitting? Could I somehow, anyhow, make use of it into my gamified app? So that's something that I want to remind you of. Also, I worked in the free-to-play. My first free-to-play game was Nemo's Reef in Disney in 2013-14, so that's a long time ago. And as I've had discussions with many of you already here, the market has changed quite a bit. So be aware of that what you see in the apps these days is way more pushy, way more really, really wanting you to stay, because once these games lose your attention, they lose you forever. But also, originally, when I started out, we were sort of looking at the business model as if we can offer something that our players find of value and they pay for it, it sustains the game, and we don't, like, the other players can enjoy it for free. So I just want to say that's where it started. It's not where it is right now. And another notion there is the games as service. We're going to get a little bit back to that, but basically, these days, you cannot just develop a game and put it out there and let it go. You have to constantly maintain the attention, the retention, and that's something that I find inspirational also in the applied gaming. So the overlap between free-to-play games and applied gaming for this talk, and from my perspective, is retention. The app wants to get you to level 1000 from a level 100, but in some way it's a similar process of deciding to run a marathon, doing a headstand, learning a new language, so you need to sort of stay around in order to make that happen. In free-to-play games, in games in general, you stay as long as you have fun. In applied gaming, you need to stay to achieve your goal. I'm deliberately not getting here into, like, intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. I think there's always a little bit of this and that, and for the purpose of this talk, I'm counting with that thing that we all know that is good for us, but we're not always great in adhering to it. This is something we also have confirmed by science. We just literally talked about that. So habit formation before our brains learn the new pathways and so on, it takes a lot of time. So retention is very, very important. Do I have time to get a glass of water? Yes. Okay, well then you can see my awesome slide. Bart knows. Bart knows how important is repetition when you're learning something.
It's a very true slide. It's actually very, yeah.
I know it's my best slide, seriously. So retention, simplified, but when we are looking at it through the game's perspective, is a function of giving the player or the user timely feedback. You've done something, I'm telling you what happened. We touched on that yesterday in the gamification workshop. Generally, knowing the result of your action is important. At the same time, you need to understand where you're progressing to, where you are right now, where you can get to, and finally, what's your goal? Do I want to run a marathon? Do I want to improve at this or that? Now, applying these learnings is easier with some apps than other apps. So again, some already mentioned it, but you can track a lot of things just naturally through your device, not only in fitness, though again, like mostly applies to things that are actually easily measurable, like running, but also your phone, your Duolingo will listen to you, tell you if you got it right, and you get that feedback, you understand what's happening. So that need for supporting narrative that we're going to be sort of talking about when we're building a system that is, built on a metaphor and adds a mechanic into it, so it becomes a gamified app, is less important in, let's say, walking and running, though I do have an example. So this app is called Conqueror, and what they do is they map your walking and running onto the whole journey from the Shire to Mordor. It's a premium app, you pay for these sections, and the moment you've achieved it, you get an actual physical heavy medal. This is my proof that it works. This is from our home, and these are not mine. They're also not that pretty, but no one's here to disprove that. So, but I want to talk about something else. I want to talk especially about mental health and self-care, because those are things I'm passionate about and where I find the need to create these, to create retention, to use mechanics that help you stay in the app longer and fix whatever you need to fix or get better at something. I find that exciting and important. And mental health comes with specific challenges. So first of all, the invisible progress, right? I can meditate every day. I have to be very good at understanding what I'm doing and what to watch for in myself in order to understand that I'm improving, that I'm feeling better. How does it even feel to be better? This is the game designer's brain, my brain, which finds this hard design problem interesting to solve. Yet another thing is the long-term engagement, which is, of course, very critical, especially if you're struggling with something, and we all know that the healthcare systems anywhere are not enough to cover for everyone in need. So in some case, the moment you enter this field, the moment you say, okay, I'm going to develop a self-care app, you're making a promise to people who are vulnerable, you're making a promise to people who need your help, and all of this together makes the stakes very high. So just to do some comparison, I took a couple of areas, a couple of sectors of apps that I see easily fit for gamification. And if you look at this is the US marketplace in the last couple of years. The revenue per download is by far the highest. So what I'm saying is basically people are willing to pay for these apps. People are seeking help. Whether or not it's working is another case. So the growth, this is only mental health, it's a category in data AI where I look at data. Category of mental health itself, you can see how incredibly it increases every year. And if I open my Instagram, because I do search for these apps, I get a lot of advertisement which tries to rope me in, uses, let's say, things like, hey, it's great that we have awareness and destigmatization of certain terms. We are no longer that afraid, or shame to talk about our conditions, but at the same time, these terms do get overused. And another big issue with these apps in general is the way they try to rope you in. So usually you have a couple of minutes to read through very little, maybe like a personal query or something, but the pressure is there to sign up very quickly. They make a promise that, it's your personal plan. They promise to make it personalized to you, to your specific issues. And this is something that I find very disruptive. It's not helping the market, and I consider it something very dark and bad. 1 second. So this is an important slide. If you're paying attention, if you were asleep, please wake up. So as I said, one thing is if these apps would actually be working. I'm going to tell you why I think they are not working. So for this comparison, I've selected basically top of the market, looking at the US market because it's the biggest one, the one with most money. But you don't have to read through it. It's just basically fitness, mental health, language learning, the top apps in these categories. I think it was for last year, this year. They're pretty much always the same. So let's now look at retention. D30, D60, that means how many % of your users stayed after 30 days, after 1 month, and after 2 months. In the middle, that in mobile gaming, this is healthy retention after 30 days, around 10%. You have sort of apps you may have heard about. I guess Calm is quite popular. Peloton is a bike app, mainly used in the US, but basically these are not great data, but also not very terrible. Then, in the bottom, you have these things that sort of refer to the slide that I showed you previously, the apps that try to rope you into their subscription. And if you have 4 people out of 100 after 30 days, I'm claiming these apps are not working at all, and they are not doing any service. They're not really helping. Another part of this problem is that this is some of the top apps I selected, but also basically the rest of the market. So it would almost seem as if there's space for something better, right? And finally, what's on top? Duolingo, sure. Finch, how many of you do know Finch? Okay, well, that's good because I have a lot of slides about it and you'll learn something. And after 60 days, we have also fairly good data, especially when you're looking at the rest of the market. So I think I need to speed up a little bit. It's okay, okay. So this is basically to which extent the apps are gamified. So I don't think that's a coincidence. You can make your own, you can have your own perspective, obviously, but this is something that I find quite striking. Finch, very quickly, is a habit tracking app. It uses I think from, at least from what I've seen, it's one of the most gamified apps, and it's a mass market app. So the gamification layer is relatively simplistic and easy. At the same time, it is very, it's in the app throughout. You can see it and you don't see that, you wouldn't think it's a serious habit tracking app. The gamification element is present. You do set up your tasks, you do complete the tasks, and at the same time you're progressing on different kind of achievements, and basically how you would build a free-to-play game. You would set up different types of progressions in order to be rewarded in multiple ways, not necessarily for just the things that you're doing. And so how they get you? You create a pet. In the beginning, you create a pet, a little bird, which is growing through what you're doing. So what they're doing is basically at the time you complete tasks, you're adding into progression of your pet. At the same time, even though it's a psychological trick, I think it's very neat because it creates a link from you to the app and subconsciously back to you, right? Because you're creating your pet based on your preferences, so there is a projection of yourself onto the pet. And then, again, if you're setting up your tasks, completing your tasks, maybe thinking you're doing it for your little bird, you're actually doing it for yourself. I want to mention one thing very quickly, So if you look at it from perspective of a core loop of an app, something that we used in gaming and in mobile gaming a lot. We have a core and meta game. So core gameplay is what you're doing every day. I'm not sure whether how many of you are familiar with the term, so I'm just going to go with very quickly. And a meta game is, in the most simplistic way, your progression. So anything that happens on the background, your, I don't know, area you've explored, exactly like your growth, things like that, things that are not related to, I have done this, but this is the reflection of how long you've been in the app and what you have been doing. What they're basically doing is they're adding these two layers, the app layer onto the real layer. So while you're doing your exercise, you're completing your task, at the same time, you mark it as complete in the app, but at the same time, when you have the progression in the app, something's happening in your real time, in your real life. You are building your habits. And now we're getting into this free-to-play layer that we haven't touched on that much just yet. So Finch and Duolingo borrow chapters from a free-to-play handbook. You've seen these leagues. They're designed after any sort of competition that you have in a free-to-play game these days. So the groups are very small. They're built in a way so you can feel the achievement, you feel the motivation to participate if that's something that you're into. You have a, let's say, I'm going to say fair, and I'm going to say it in quotation marks, but you have a fair chance to get to the top of the leaderboard. It's not an anonymous leaderboard of 100 people where you feel completely like you can't impact anything. Saga map, I probably don't need to even mention that one. Another example is seasonal pass. So this is an example from Finch. Seasonal pass is a mechanic that has spilled over to all the games everywhere, so you've probably seen it. And I want to point out one thing here. So in a game, it's going to be a mechanic to get you to play as much as possible. There's a time limit. This season, let's say December, you need to get to the end to get all the rewards. You need to pay to get the premium rewards. And what Finch does, they turn it around. They say, okay, our goal isn't for you to do as much as possible because you're going to burn out. They say, we, as the app developer, we believe that what you need to do in order to get on with your journey, you just need to log in once a day. You just need to do one little thing. You just need to bring your attention to the fact that you're trying to change something in your life. So we're just going to give you a reward after you complete your first task. So the feature looks like a free-to-play feature, but acts with a very conscious, very ethical perspective of understanding who your user is. And it's a very good lesson to remember whenever you're thinking about a mechanic. Translate it to your users, bring it to, so it supports the goals that you have for your users or that your users have. And there's also a store with currency where you can, spruce up your bird. That sounds like a terrible sentence, so let's move on. But again, like bringing the attention back to the numbers. There's maybe some correlation. So, for the next couple of slides, I'm going to be talking about a few features that I caught up in games. I have either seen them in apps, or I would like to see them in apps. So, time, good? Good. So one thing that games often do is toss you right into the action. They don't want to lose you. You've already installed the app. What do you do? What's like the core action I'll be doing in this game? Great, you will be tapping things to make them disappear. But same thing does, for instance, Headspace, that basically every time you log onto it shows you this like breathing little animation, understanding, hey, this app will be about breathing. They give you a taste of what's going to happen in the app, maybe lowering somehow the anxiety of you trying something new, or just give you like, hey, this is doable, this is not hard. So, of course, that's not universally applicable, but where it is, I think it's quite neat. I already talked about customization, so this is the opening scene in Finch. You choose the color and name of your egg and bird. As I said, it's a bit of a trope. It's what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe even overused, but it's definitely functional. Creating a personal link to whatever you'll be using in the app, on and on and on, already hooks you right in the beginning. So, and we're talking about short-term retention. Finally, this one, my favorite example. So this is not a free-to-play game. It's called Cozy Grove. I don't know if anyone of you knows it. They basically give you a couple of quests every day. Once you've run through the story arc of the day, they just tell you, hey, you should come back tomorrow. You've played enough. You can run around, collect things. That's fine. But the main story arc is over for today. So they're telling you, hey, if you come back tomorrow, we're making you curious about what's going to happen tomorrow. You already know the characters. There's going to be more. So I haven't actually seen this in any applied game scenario, but I think it's a very neat way to maybe limit the necessary content and bring you back for more on the next day, which is a key action for retention and habit building and whatnot. So moving on to midterm retention, visual progress is something that's awesome, obviously. The examples here, this is Gardenscapes, this is a Pomodoro app called Forest, this is again Cozy Grove. So anytime you can allow for it, anytime you can do some sort of visual reflection of the player's progress, it's something that will remind them of the path they've already walked. This is how much I worked in the November and December last year. You get 3 for every Pomodoro cycle. So yeah, last year, not so much. But still a neat feature. Time-limited events. So that's something that you may think is absolutely limited to free-to-play, but actually Finch or Fabulous or Strava are doing challenges. Of course, they don't look like that, but they tie again into whatever the app's goal or app's focus is. But it's also a nice feature to, break the routine, bring back your users, give them something new, maybe tied to the community. So creating something that re-sparks maybe you on your journey. Again, it's a bit of an external motivation, but when done well and in line with the app, it may, bring back your focus to whatever you are trying to achieve. Finally, idle progress. So this is something that Finch does, and I think it's super neat. So the example is from AFK Arena, but actually in games overall, idle progress is something that is fairly common. Typically, you send your heroes on a trip, they come back in 8 hours. It's a feature to bring you back to the game. It's a mechanic. And Finch lets you basically send a bird on a little adventure. It's a nice way to keep understanding the app is somewhere on the back of your mind and giving you a call back once the adventure is over. So even if you just open the app in the morning, start the adventure, you have a reason to come back in the evening. There's a bit of curiosity. Again, not really disruptive because you don't have to care, you don't have to do anything. But if you care and open the app, restarts again, thinking, hey, I still have these tasks, maybe I can complete something. So that, again, I find very neat, but I pretty much chose features that I think are neat, so I don't have to repeat it with every single one. So going a little bit towards the end, so this is an app called Zombies Run. It's a running app, walking app. So it's a story that you listen to while you're doing your marathon training. I don't know about you, but if I hear zombies, I do run faster. But another nice thing about storytelling, basically, in general, is that it works obviously long-term if written well, but it also works short-term. So if you're just starting out and everything seems like a hustle, everything is scary, I have never run in my life, oh my God, my knees hurt, maybe I can just get to a checkpoint and use the story to overcome that onboarding anxiety. Social features, they are in every game, so I chose just, again, examples from Duolingo and Finch. A little bit showing the difference between what the app's focus is and how they build a community, what they make you care about. So in Duolingo, obviously, that's this sort of competition. Do as many rounds of learning as you want. One of the social features in Finch is basically you can pay sponsorship for someone else who, I haven't mentioned this, but the app is actually usable for free. It's not full features, but it's pretty much sort of a free-to-use model. But one of the social features is that you can pay a sponsorship to someone who wants to use it but cannot afford it or whatever. It's a very like trust-built system, and it's very in line with the sort of ideas that Finch is trying to promote like throughout the whole app. And finally, collections. Yeah, that's a favorite one with many people. I'm mentioning it because I love collections, and I do love the collection in Cozy Grove because they do adjust the content. These are fish, but there's like more things to collect. They adjust the content monthly, so you have this like, we're talking about long-term retention, right? So for long-term retention, coming back to the app, you still have to care about the rest, but you're gonna face a little bit of a different content every time while doing your actions. So maybe not directly applicable, but I definitely like the system, how they set it up. So here's a couple of more learnings from free-to-play. So it wouldn't be a presentation if there wouldn't be a weird AI-generated image that is basically nonsensical. So this one's mine. Mix short and long-term goals, whether or not in the basically in the gamified layer. Again, Finch has the seasonal pass. Duolingo has the leagues. Like, give something to work for in the long term, even if it's artificial. It can boost retention and basically your engagement with whatever you're learning and doing. Run your app like a game. So I mentioned this in the beginning, but I don't think there's anything wrong with not doing it like that, but with offering time-limited content, time-limited challenges that are in line with the user's goals. And I guess, again, like Finch is an example that's a little bit doing that, but I could see, I'm not going to say double down on it, but times 1.1 maybe. And built in interconnected systems. So for Finch, we talked about you have the bird, you can buy him or her clothes, you can even decorate like their little house. Part of why it's meaningful is that you earn the currency in order to spend whatever you like. Another layer of the meaning is the social feature. So your friends will see how, you know, your I'm constantly almost saying avatar, it's your pet, how your pet looks like. None of those features are like, you know, groundbreaking, hey, this is something completely new, but creating a system in which you encounter them over and over again and it has an additional meaning than just them being there helps solidify like the value of the features. And we talked about the core loop, so what I'm saying here basically is you don't just engage and retain, you don't just do the thing and get progression in the long run, but you have to think about how you're supporting the user in order to achieve their goal. Because like in fun naturally motivates you, you can play Candy Crush, you don't have to ever spend a dime. You are having fun, probably, maybe, I don't know. But this is a very, you know, I'm not having the same fun when I, you know, run or do things that I know that are good for me. So using that supporting the user's goals through the features that we just talked about, I find very important. As I said, you should check back tomorrow. Hey, you know, you're good for today. I don't need anything else more from you. Come back tomorrow. Do something more tomorrow. The idle feature, how Finch creates the social area where you can, you know, send a heart to your friend, let them know that they're not the only person struggling or trying to get somewhere. Works, again, all of those sort of support you on, hey, you know, stay, keep attempting at what you're doing. So, is there a space for another Finch? I think so. I am a little bit sad there are not more apps like that. I think one of the reasons is that in order to develop a good gamified app, you don't just develop the app and put gamification on top. And of course, doing both from the scratch, it's more expensive than just doing, you know, hey, let's add some badges. Another thing is Finch is, as I said, like it's casting a very wide net. it was the most downloaded and third top revenue game in the last 90 days in the app in the last 90 days in the US in mental health. So you see the features are light, the gamification is light, it's basically targeting a lot of people. But if you start looking at more, maybe your audience is something like Habitica, which is a habits tracker but with an RPG elements. So there may be something that someone else who wants to really grab a big part of the marketplace isn't seeing. We also spoke about the abilities of the healthcare systems to cover for everything. So there are services that are definitely not affordable by a lot of people. So in that sense, I'm saying basically if I have an app that helps me to achieve what I'm doing, spending $5 a month instead of, hey, it's a new year, it's going to be New Year soon. I have my resolution, I'm going to sign up to one of these apps that I showed earlier. I'm going to give them my $50, what happens next? Nothing happens next, I stop using it after a month. So if I can pay for my Netflix, maybe I can pay for an app or improve my experience in the app month over month, $5 at a time, the way I pay for the things I enjoy more, like Netflix. All I'm saying is I think there's space to look at gamification from this perspective. And yeah, maybe you'll end up pushing free-to-play games out of the market, like Finch did here on this Reddit thread. So I hope you do. Thank you.